Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined by a full squad to look back on what unfolded at Ibrox last night. I predict this could be a pretty lengthy show today. Joshua Barry joins us. How's it going, Joshua?
Good. I'm a bit weary because in probably stereotypical fashion, I came home and rewatched the game, and it was that reliving that. The first half was bad enough. Not much sleep, but we're gonna try and make some sense of it, and get through some comments as well.
Yeah, take my hat off to you sitting through that again, especially at that time of night. But
1.5 speed, to be fair, Derek, but it was still arduous enough.
Yeah. Still Rangers be slow and laborious, I'd imagine, even at that speed. Stevie joins us as well. How's it going, Stevie?
That's what I was about to say. 1.5 speed wouldn't make John Souttar look any faster, that's for sure. I am fine. Good morning, everyone. Time for a few home truths, I think, Derek, this morning that probably echoes a lot of what was being said last night in the stands. That was not pretty. The first half was verging on diabolical, to be quite honest with you. So, could very well be a lengthy show when I get going, and Joshua tries to be a bit more pragmatic about it, no doubt, and he tells us the kind of strategy side of it and things like that, but some things aren't passing the eye test, mate, that's for sure.
No, I know. Before we get stuck in, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust, and proud partners of the Rangers Review. They've got over 20 years of experience, and they offer free consultations, whether it's at a large-scale building project or a smaller scale job. You also get 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review over on their website, which is willows-fencing.com. If you missed the game last night, folks, Rangers losing by 3-1 at home to Club Brugge. The Belgians raced into a 3-goal lead after 20 minutes. It really was a shambolic start from Rangers. They managed to get in at half-time, 3-0 down, came out second half, got a goal back through Danilo, courtesy of a really good whipped-in cross from Jayden Magoma, who I thought was good last night on his debut. Rangers had a goal ruled out from VAR from Jedi Gasma, who was also a bit of a shining light and Rangers' real only attacking outlet in that second half. But it finished at 3-1. Rangers will head over to Belgium a week today with a real mountain to climb. But so much to unpack from the game. A mass exodus when Brugge scored their third goal, and you can't deny the feeling towards Russell Martin, which is far from positive. Let's be honest. A lot of fans didn't want him anyway. They want him out. And he was speaking last night, of course, again about having to go through pain to get to where he thinks this Rangers team can reach. But a lot of fans simply not buying what he is selling. Now, I was on with Chris last night for the post-match reaction video, which was... is what it is. Joshua, you weren't there. You were in the press conference hearing from Russell Martin. What did you make of what you witnessed at Ibrox last night?
I think there's so much to get into from it. And the biggest thing for me, and I think Stevie's right, is optics, Derek. And I think what you've seen from Rangers summer so far is that so much has changed, right, and structurally in terms of new owners. This is actually a bit of a rebuild, although they need to get players out. But much like we spoke about after Dundee, I think if you're a fan and you go to that game and you sit through it and you sat through a number of managers telling you it's going to get better, you sat through a number of new players and some of the old ones whose mistakes you've seen before, you need to... I thought Scott Arfield summed it up quite well when I was watching back the game on Amazon. You need to see stuff to believe in, and at the moment I don't think that balance is there. Simultaneously, I think some of what Russell Martin said last night is right, in that there is a weight. I used a phrase about the pressure and the anxiety that some of these players haven't created. Some of them have, but some of them haven't been a bit of a weight around the neck that you can't wear. I think he's right. as we discussed over summer, that when you're radically trying to change a play style, there will be a lot of pain. But the difficulty then, I also think you encounter is, I think culturally his football is quite different to, and Stevie can correct me if I'm wrong, but to what Ibrox wants a lot of the time. So even when Rangers go down last night, I think there's a conversation to be had. I asked Russell Martin post-match about that tactical side. It wasn't tactical, he thought, in the first half, and we can come on to those goals. But I think especially when it goes to 3-0 and the centre-backs are holding the ball, that's where I think you have this real difference between what people expect to see, what people want to see, what the players can do under pressure, and ultimately, I think, to buy the time to show what it will look like in a few months instead of what he said last night, which is, look, we're 7.5 weeks in. Normally, you'd only have played one game. The rules are just different here, and as a result, you need to get a couple of wins. You need to get a bit of buy-in to convince, and Rangers haven't been able to do that so far, and they go into the final stretches of August really needing a big victory. So I've sympathy because of those first two goals, because it is an absolute car crash. I mean, the first goal in particular, you look at it and you can't believe what's happened. However, I think what you see from there, with the team kind of completely capitulating, is people not picking up from set pieces again. Is it too much information? Is it the anxiety of trying to play this style when it's not working on a night like last night and you're conceding too much space? Loads and loads to get into, but that's how I saw it. That first half was as, I don't know what word you use, Stevie, angry or irritated, and we've seen that Ibrox crowd like that a lot in the last few years. It's right up there for me, Derek, and that's the worry, I think, is that it is August and there's so much unrest, and however long, I'll talk to them long the tooth about strategy and doing something long term. You need the short term buy-in too, and that was a painful night, I think, for all involved last night.
Yeah. You mentioned it there. He needs wins. Rangers manager coming in, you need to get wins on the board as opposed to trying to play this expansive style. And fans are sick of hearing you need to put up with a bit of pain. How much more pain are you going to have to incur before we start seeing the fruits of this? And even then, my argument is, and I'm sure we'll discuss this at length as well, even when it does come good, it doesn't really have a great track record of when it does at teams he's been at before. It's not as if he's went and won the championship with Southampton. He's got them maybe high up in the Premier League. He's got Swansea mid-table. You can understand why fans are really frustrated and feel that this guy isn't the guy to lead the club back to where we all want it to be, which, let's be honest, is back winning league titles. But Stevie, what do you make of what you witnessed last night?
I thought it was a shambles, Derek. Let's call it as it is. Basic fundamentals that you expect a Rangers team to be well organised, well drilled, difficult to beat. That was the polar opposite. The first goal you can almost accept is just a complete mess and a mistake between two players, which happens. What happens in the second and third goal is equally as bad, because the second goal, they're all lining up as clear as day from a corner kick, which is things that people have pointed out, zonal marking, etc. And in the third goal, Danilo is pushed off the ball like he's not even there by somebody that just wants it a wee bit more, Derek. It's that desire.
Yeah.
We are asking players all over the pitch to do things that they can't do. Jack Butland is abundantly uncomfortable in goals. As good a shot stopper as Jack is, and thank goodness he is, because let's not sugarcoat it. Once again, a team could have had 6 or 7 or 8 goals against us again.
Yep.
And Jack, we have to thank for managing to make some saves. He's not comfortable. The defence is a mess. It's far too high. The centre-backs are being asked to do things that they can't do. The full-backs look a bag of nerves. And the midfield is completely non-existent. I'll continue to say it. We were beat yesterday by a pass that went goalkeeper, centre-back, centre-forward, with one 60-yard pass in the first half. I don't know if Joshua remembers this, but it went from front to back, straight through our team, and the boy was able to turn and then go on our 2 centre-backs. It's one pass, Derek, is undoing everything. The nines are completely not in the game. They are stagnated. There's no support for them. And the wingers are basically being asked to create and do everything themselves. Now, I will say, I thought that Gassama and Makoma were very good going forward last night. But you are asking so much of this team to do things that they're, one, not capable of doing, and two, you're overcomplicating everything. And it's very easy to play against. Steven Gerrard very quickly figured out you had to win the midfield in Scotland and where we are trying to play our game. And he made it a base for Europe. There was many times we would go Davis, Jack, Kamara, for example, and people would moan and say that's so defensive, but it allowed others to play and get goals, etc. This team is miles away from looking like it's going to get through that pain that he talks about, Derek. And the other thing is as well, and people are well aware of this, and you can put the fact that nobody wanted him to the side and things like that. See, by the time we do figure this out and by the time we get it clicked, everything's gone. And people are too impatient and they're too angry to wait and be in a position where we're just going to write off another season. And then even if he does, I think it's too far already. Joshua talked about toxicity levels in the stadium. This is where it was on end of day for Clement and Beale already. The atmosphere in the stadium is awful. The atmosphere amongst the support is awful. There is zero support for him, and there's zero belief in the fact that he can turn this around. And as harsh as it sounds, and it is harsh because he's, 7 weeks in? That's the truth of it. That's where we are with it already. And, there is no buy-in. And what's worse, Derek, you can get past the no buy-in in the stands if there's buy-in on the pitch. I'm seeing guys that don't believe it. I don't believe that Diamande, Raskin, John Souttar, I don't believe that these guys believe in it. And I'll try and they didn't look like it last night. See, when you needed a voice, when you needed leadership on that park, it's not coming. These guys, like Souttar, like Butland, the ones that we apparently rely on, Joshua might think differently. They shrink. They physically shrink within themselves in front of you in that team, and you can see it. There's no leadership, and you're asking them to do things, one, that they don't want to do, and two, they're simply not capable of it.
Just to come back on that point, I think Stevie's right, because I thought what was striking last night was that Jaden Magoma, if you kind of watch that game,
shouting at John Souttar.
Yeah, that moment, but just in general. But if you had no concept of Rangers, as lucky as you might be in the last few years and hadn't been watching them, and you watched that game, you think Magoma was an agent coming to it. You think he was one of the senior players the way he played, and I think in isolation, credit to him, because that's not easy after a couple of games.
Yeah.
That's where I have sympathy with Russell Martin, because I think this is a squad too. And I asked him, someone asked him in the press conference about that too, and the word he came back to was courage. And I thought you saw that with Jeji Gassama. You've got like a couple of non-negotiables here. Russell Martin is someone who's going to stick to his core idea, and there will be little adaptations, but he's going to stick to his core idea. So he needs players to come along for the ride. And you're right, he's 7.5 weeks in. This is why the rules are almost different up here, because normally you'd be one game into the season. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you draw. Whereas Rangers are in a place where they're going into a must-win game against St Mirren, and it's not even the end of August. And on the point of pain, again, that's relative, because I agree with that statement that if you want something long-term, you've got to have the pain short-term for it. But the difficulty is that's a crowd that's had how many painful seasons back-to-back? 4, 5, and a lot before that. So the patience reserves are kind of used up for that. That's this season doesn't happen, Derek, in isolation, does it? But I agree with Stevie that there's a real lack of, I think, people in that moment when it goes 3-0 who say, I'll change it. And you need half-time. I think, as Russell Martin kind of said in his answer, you need half-time to come to reset. And they changed a few things tactically because he went man for man, which made them a little bit more aggressive. But the lack of individuals, I think, regardless of systems and tactics and whatever, to really grab the game. I thought, apart from Jeji Gassama and Makoma in moments, I thought that was really stark.
Can I just say something about what you've just said, Joshua? I'm going to single somebody out here. John Souttar deserves so much criticism for his performance last night, wearing the armband. After that moment, Derek, in a couple of minutes where we make that mistake, get vocal. Tell your teammates, dig in, stick with it for 10 minutes, keep the ball, keep them out, and ride through this till we play our way into the game. It's the only way to do it. And he was practically mute that whole first half. I watched them. There was no G'ing up of the players. The only players that were doing it after goals were going in was Nico Raskin and the young fella Magoma, trying to get them going. Everybody else was head down. John Suter, leadership group, one of your guys with your captaincy. He played the game last night like we were 4-0 up, like he doesn't have a care in the world. He doesn't want to be in this system. You can tell by an absolute mile away that he doesn't want to be in.
I believe
his defensive performance and his leadership qualities last night were absolutely non-existent. We can all pan Russell Martin, and we will, and I think that's absolutely fair. But see, when you have professionals basically chucking it right in front of you, then I think you're in real problems with players not buying into things and players not wanting to do the fundamentals that he spoke about. Work hard, run hard, be faster, be fitter than everybody else. You can't watch that third goal and tell me that Danilo believes in what he's trying to do, the way that he was so easily pushed off the ball, Derek. They're not buying into it, and they're not performing in a level that can make us as supporters sit and watch it and go, yeah, they are buying into it. That last night from John Suter, leadership-wise, as a captain, what you need in that team was diabolical. And the players certainly shouldn't be missed in all this. Because as Joshua said, bravery, courage, etc., they've none. They've absolutely none. Raskin, Diamande, Danilo, Suter, all that spine of the team, you need them to stand up. They don't look like they're invested in this. They don't look like they're playing for the club or playing for Russell Martin. And that's the truth of it. Because when it went really bad last night, they were hanging on. And we are very lucky that it took Bruges to come off the pedal. It took us 31 minutes last night, to mount a press that worked, and we got a shy down by the Sandy Jardine side at the top corner where the away fans are. It's the first time a press had looked anywhere near 31 minutes into a game. It's not good enough. It is not good enough. The spine of the team is non-existent, and you cannot set up in an expansive way and expect them to play like Man City, who very rarely in world football do teams manage to make this style work. And we're trying to do a style that relies on the very top quality players, and we don't have them, and they're very clearly overawed by what they're being asked to do.
Yeah, can't disagree with any of that. The issue of Russell Martin and this playing style that he talks about, this philosophy, Rangers are completely different, no disrespect to the teams he's been at, to Swansea, Southampton and MK Dons. And given the fact that, I know he said this in his press conference when he was unveiled, that he's not been a popular choice at those previous clubs, Rangers is a completely different kettle of fish. You have to win games to begin with to get fans on side. Try and get the wins to begin with, and then look to slowly integrate that playing style that you're looking to adopt. But he's went all in on this, and yeah, he's asking for time, keeps asking for it. But again, the fans aren't buying what they're selling. We're not seeing enough to give us encouragement that this could work in the long term. Your question to him then, Joshua, last night on tactics, and this is what he had to say about losing those two early goals.
After 7 minutes, tactics don't come into it, because for the next half an hour, didn't really see anything we'd worked on. Really nothing. So guys waiting on the ball because of the tension in the crowd. Guys jumping out to press when just out of desperation when they shouldn't. They should wait and hold their position, and then we were ready to steal the ball. So it's not about tactics, it's not about style of play. That's about the reaction emotionally to the damage that's been inflicted, and we didn't respond well enough to it.
So, yeah, it's not about tactics, Joshua. I've seen that you come in for criticism for that and not really taking responsibility. Sorry, but that second goal especially is, that's on Russell Martin for me. We were warned that he doesn't know how to organise a defence. It doesn't look like he's learned. And if he doesn't know how to organise a defence, then he's not going to last long as the Rangers manager. That second goal was abysmal. Yeah,
we spoke about... The sympathy I have is, one, if Kasama scores that goal, makes it 3-2, I realise that probably clouds the first half, because I wrote after the game that I think the shock of the first half far outweighs any kind of valiant attempt of the second, because Stevie's right. Brugge also trying to defend the lead, which I think changes the state of the game. But much like Pilsen away, we were speaking last week, Derek, and I think there have been a few shoots like Pilsen at home where you see, okay, here's some of the ideas, here's how they work. But it's such a high wire, and Pilsen away, when Russell Martin's asked about seeing it a lead, how does he in his mind, how does he want to see out a lead? By players taking the ball and being brave. So what he's saying there is it's not about tactics. In one sense, he's right, because if you watch the corners that Rangers had following that opening goal, they weren't set up properly for it, and that maybe comes into, is there too much instructions? Are players second guessing? Can they do this system with this crowd? But then also what I think maybe is about tactics is when it goes 2-0, you just got to shut up for the shut up shop for the half. And if you get in at 2-0, you could have easily brought that back to 2-2 again if Bruges sit back a little bit, as we saw in the second half. But to shut up shop, it requires you going a bit more direct, being a bit more pragmatic, and that's where I think the tactical style does merit a bit of criticism. Because if you look at the third goal again, what I think Russell Martin is seeing and discussing there is Nico Raskin was jumping out quite a lot to press, but then one of the centre-backs wasn't going with him, which leaves a big gap in front of the defence. And if you look at how Joe Rothwell actually clears the ball, someone who's played in the centre, the left side's completely open, and that happened a couple of times, and I just wonder if that's Rothwell going into autopilot where he thinks I'm supposed to be in the centre. Stevie's right, Danilo doesn't get his body in the way at all, and he's out-muscled. I think if you're playing intelligently there, you just take a foul, you just get your body in the way somehow to get your team up the pitch. So I've sympathy because of the nature of the goals, but I also think that you can't. The two are connected. Tactics is I think tactics is everything. Is how do you play to the crowd? How do you play in the environment? How do you play in the environment of the game? We have seen Rangers concede a lot of chances and a lot of opportunities, even going back to how often Liam Kelly was outside his box against Alloa at the weekend, where I think Jack Butland should be for that first goal as Nasser Giga leaves it. So everything's connected, and whether it's the players having too much information or not having enough direct options, and maybe that's just not part of the playbook unless Rangers are pressed man for man. That's kind of my thoughts, pros and cons on the argument of whether it's tactical. You can't disassociate it at all because everything's connected. Also, the first two goals in isolation, if you take it all away, are completely freak. And I think any manager would probably struggle with that. But I think you've got to just get it to 2-0 somehow, Derek, even if that means going, right, we're just going to sit around the box and protect it. But I don't think that's in Russell Martin's playbook. And sometimes at this level, I would argue probably would need that. Yeah,
you're saying it's freak goals. It was asked afterwards, Russell Martin, do you think there'll be more nights like this? Or do you think that first half could be a sort of one-off? He said, we won't concede 2 goals like that again. So, no, I think it will be. I said to the players, we'll make sure that'll be the hardest it ever is for them as a group and for them to come through it the way they did. I'm proud of them. As I said, we'll grow and we're still in this tie. I don't know how you can categorically say that we won't concede goals like that against Stevie. I very much hope he's right, but given what we've witnessed so far, I'm fully expecting more goals like that to be given away.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. I spoke to him last night. That was my question to him. This team is wide open, Derek. And this isn't. And by the way, he can try and polish it a wee bit, and I understand he has to with that second half. The second half was miles away from being anywhere decent either. We're lucky that Bruges sat in. Who created the most opportunities? Who had the most saves from what was apparently a better second half performance? It was Jack Butland, because Bruges should have scored at least another couple in that second half. But we had Butland to thank for a couple of competently good saves, which we would hope he makes. But the point is, how many saves did Mignolet have at the other end? He had Danilo's shot because Danilo was actually given a cross, or 9. And I've spoken about this so many times on the show already. Our 9s are completely ineffectual in this. And you could put Haaland, Danilo, anybody in. The way we play, it's not going to make any difference because they do not offer anything in this system. They are isolated. There's nobody in the box to support them. And very rarely do they get the right kind of service that they need for it to thrive. Danny isn't a 10. He isn't a forward. He's a striker. He's a link. He's a goal scorer. And he can hold up the ball as such and link players in. But it's not the type of game that he needs to thrive. He needs to play in a 2. He needs to be a partner. And you're asking him to do things he can't do. And then you've got the other flip side of it. Hamza Igaman is that type of player, but that means when he drops in, there's nobody up front in the box, etc. So it's pretty clear, Derek, that, this system is flawed because the players don't know what they're doing. Joshua, do you remember in the first half the amount of times that Brugge broke? You spoke about it slightly, and the players were over on our right hand side, and they are attacking fullback on the right hand side, attacking our left. That side of the park was wide open. There was 3 on at one point for a cross ball, which they did, and it was slightly too high, which held it up slightly. But we're a mess, Derek, all over the pitch. And you know, Joshua says a lot of things that are correct about, you know, getting in at 2-0, but that requires what I talked about, that leadership that isn't there. Just to go, right, we've conceded a horror goal in the first couple of minutes, dig in, be practical, clear it, clear your lines, play your way back in, feel your way back into the game. They don't have it. So, and you can't ask for things that they're not capable of doing, Derek. And that's, I'm sorry, like, I'll go back to it again. We're asking them to do things that they cannot do and they're physically not capable of doing. And that's just, I just don't. I think the biggest issue Russell Martin has now is that he's lost the fan base. And it's happened so early, and probably a lot earlier than anyone anticipates. And we're now back at the stage, Derek, of repeating ourselves, which we said under Philip Clement. It doesn't really matter if he goes 5 or 6 games on the bounce. The fans don't trust it, and they won't buy into it. So he talks about they're having more pain. Nobody's going to accept that already. No. And that's the awkward elephant in the room, so to speak, that the fans are sitting going, the season's a write-off. We're probably going to have to rebuild. I'm not putting up with this, and I'm not watching it. 43,000 the attendance was last night. It was down at 35,000 or so after 7-8 minutes, and it was even worse at 3-0. That'll continue, and that's the position that the club find ourselves in because the support aren't buying into this. And there's no point in sitting here and pretending any otherwise. Nobody's asking for him to be sacked or outlandish, but everybody knows where it's going in the eyes of the support and where we're going to end up, and that's just the truth.
A lot of fans do want him to be removed already. I've never seen a Rangers manager lose the fans like this. I mean, he said it himself. We touched on it earlier. He wasn't the popular appointment, but as I mentioned, he has to get fans on side with wins, and he's not getting that now. Of course, for me, getting to the Champions League playoff round in itself, I didn't think Rangers would reach that stage, but it's domestically that he really needs to start winning football matches, and he's got 2 massive ones. Joshua, you said St Mirren must win. Absolutely is must win on Sunday. Never mind that the Old Firm game coming up. A lot of fans heading to Paisley or watching on TV, they'll be anxious about what sort of Rangers team are going to turn up. I think St Mirren will fancy this. Stephen Robinson always gets them organised pretty well. I hate 12 noon kickoffs, and Rangers have come a cropper down there on a good few occasions. This is a massive game for Russell Martin. It's massive until the international break. These 2 fixtures, St Mirren and Celtic, he's got to win these 2 for me. I can't see it though. Yeah,
the way I describe it, I think is. And Russell Martin kind of said this himself out in Pilsen. The gap between the ceiling and the floor is so big at the moment. And that when Rangers have looked good, and I go back to that Pilsen first leg, I don't think there's been an abundance of halves that have really clicked outside of that. It can be really effective. Players know what they're supposed to be doing. But the floor, what you fall back on, I think is so low comparatively, which is why you have these big open gaps, which is why you have, as Stevie says, real disconnect. And maybe because a lot of these players are playing a system like this for the first time, there isn't that individualism to it to kind of, I don't know, you see it with Nico Raskin at points. I think he was trying to in the first half in his own way. But then in jumping out at the wrong time or pressing at the wrong moments, he maybe leaves the team a bit exposed without one of the centre halves following him. And yes, it's mad that we're 8 weeks into the season, isn't it? But this is just this is the challenge that the new ownership faced, is that this season does not exist in a vacuum. This season exists on the back of 3 or 4 seasons like this, and the 2 are absolutely inseparable. And any manager at any club, but especially a big club, requires a few big statement wins, moments that I think you had with like getting through against Panathinaikos. you probably needed the luck to get through against Dundee. You need them to make it feel like the short-term pain is worth it. So St Mirren's tight pitch, as you say, 12 o'clock, a physical game. I think Rangers have looked exposed from set pieces so far, and that's largely because we spoke about it after Alloa, Derek, but largely because I think teams are calling their bluff on the zonal marking and just going for the second phase. So going for a big looping ball to the back where a dominant header of the opposition team can win the ball and knock it back into the middle of the pitch. So yeah, it's huge games coming up. And again, the optics of it, Rangers aren't really expected to go through to the Champions League. I don't think they're ready for the Champions League. I think last night showed it against a good Champions League side, but not one of like the top 15 or 18 in the league.
They've changed a lot of players as well, so I'm not having this that they're a sort of they are a top side, but Rangers have played teams like that in recent years and got better results and better performances than that.
Yeah, and the theory is, I think, that although you suffer in trying to play your way in Europe, it will make sense domestically because you will have this game style.
Before, didn't you? That they might have to put up with a downturn in European performances for better displays domestically, but
you need the better displays domestically. That's the key thing.
Yeah.
And again, is that like? This is why Rangers are so unique, because Dundee 1-1. Most clubs in the world, if you draw your first home game, it's not the end of the world. Whereas here in the context, it feels like it is, and then you feel up against it, and you've got a lot of new players, but maybe only 40% of that dressing room is fresh, something like that. You've still got a number of players who the club haven't been able to get out this window, and you need that domestic template to start clicking. So. What a club, Derek! But I don't think you can't blame fans for anger because again they've sat through so many of those nights repeatedly, and I think there's a desperation for something to believe in, something to hold on to, which is why you see the reaction that you do. For what it's worth, Russell Martin, of course, he has to come out and defend his ideas and go on the front foot. I think that's only reasonable. Because he's already pressed the button of really criticising his players after Motherwell, and I think you can only do that so many times.
Where do Rangers go for here then, Stevie?
It needs to get better quickly. One of the starting things last night was, and I found it really difficult to listen to, was the Bruges coach saying we know where the space would be.
Yep.
The problem is that you could drive a bus through that Rangers team, in certain places. Like, they are wide open. That's my biggest problem with this, is that the rate of chances they're giving up against teams is relying on Jack Butland in every single game. Even against Alloa, there was a moment where one long ball put in Connor Salmon because he was able to kind of push Max Aarons out the way, and if he had lobbed it better, Liam Kelly was right out his goal. He didn't, but it's so easy to play against, is my point, Derek. Where do they go from here? They need an instant upsurge in performance and have a durability about them that we can witness and see, and it'll calm people down. But this is the thing, Derek. It goes back to what I said before, and it's the uncomfortable position that we are in. It's already too far. It's already gone too far. And my point I made a second ago, I need to clarify that slightly because I am wrong, but I'm right also, I think, in what I'm trying to say. When I said that nobody's calling for him to get fired, I think people are past that already. Like, they just point blank don't want him. They're not prepared to let it mature or go in any way that he might want it to go. So the apathy's already there, Derek. And we are, 2 league games in. That was the point I was trying to make. Like, when I say nobody's wanting him or nobody's it's already past that already. Yeah. Where do we go from here? It's simple. You need to win games. But even if you win games, if we're as wide open, and you've seen it with Panathinaikos away and even to an extent Pilsen because of the away game there, you're not getting credit in the bank for those results because people are going, well, it's only a matter of time before somebody takes 3 or 4 offers. And it happened within 20 minutes last night, and people are just going, yep, that's been on the wall for ages. So it's already there. Where do they go from here is depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks, I think. I don't think they'll jump. I really don't think they'll react, and because I think that it's still a different atmosphere at Ibrox than it is in the stands and things like that. I think they believe in what they're trying to do and be aware that they've spent a lot of money to get to where they are. Russell Martin had 7 interviews for this job. I don't see them suddenly going, this is going wrong. I really don't, as difficult as it is. So we as a support might need to just buckle in. But, last night was a sign of the reaction to it, Derek, last night in the first 20 minutes. Unless you were blind and deaf, sitting there, where the fans are at. Trying to get a buy-in for that is so difficult now. And where they go from here, they need to start winning. They need to start performing. They need to start getting results and for us to see something. But for that jump to suddenly happen before Sunday, or even worse, happen Bruges or Celtic next week, which is a disaster waiting to happen.
Yep.
I've not felt this way going into an Old Firm since I did when we got beat 6-2, when our form was really bad up until running up to that quite a bit.
And the record's been good lately against Celtic, but I'm
see the way we are playing and being so wide open and sitting so high. It's a recipe for absolute disaster. Yeah. And the biggest thing is if Alloa and Dundee, no disrespect to them, Motherwell are creating 5 or 6 opportunities at Fir Park the way they did, big chances. What's other teams going to do to us? Because Bruges, by the way, tailed off. So they will come next week to kill this game off in its entirety and could very well find themselves 3-0 up after 20 minutes again if they really want to. And that's the biggest issue we've all got watching it. Where do we go from here? He's not likely to change anything, Derek. So we need to hope and pray that it gets better very, very quickly. Otherwise, things like last night are going to be what you see for the foreseeable future until it magically clicks at some point, in which point the fear is it'll be too far gone already.
Yeah, I said to Chris last night, if Rangers have, I know that Russell Martin's come out and said that they're still in the tie. He's always going to say that, but Rangers are going to have to score at least 5 goals next week.
We can't even get 5 shots on target.
I know. So forget it.
Sorry, I'm sorry if this is so ultra negative, and I get it. And there's a big change in style and context at the football club. I understand it. You've got to watch something and believe in it to be able to go on that journey with somebody. Nobody believes in this. I'm sorry if it's really harsh and it's ultra negative. I get it. It's just the truth from where I see it. You're not getting buy-in. Nobody believes in this system. What's even worse is I don't think the players do, and they're asking to do things that are impossible. As I said, I don't like coming on and slating them because it feels like we've been sitting here, Derek, for 4 years doing it. But I would be disingenuous to sit here and say it's going in the right direction, things will get better. There's no signs that it will.
It is not. Joshua, do you want to jump in there at any point? Wrap things up here.
Do I have any points left? I think. Do I have any more points to make? I don't know if I do. I think after a night last night, obviously it's tough to.
It is very tough
to find positives in it. What I would say is I agree with the concept overall that Rangers need a style of play, that it needs to be possession heavy because that's normally how you win leagues, and that there needs to be short-term pain to get through it. And I think you have seen bits and bobs. However, on the other hand, I think tactics encompasses absolutely everything. I think tactics is how you respond to a home crowd. I think you can't ignore the environment. I think if you don't have pragmatism to a degree up here, then you're brave and you need it a little bit to get through. And what I keep coming back to is there's a big gap between the ceiling and the floor. And that gap is too big at the moment. If Rangers are to get a couple of good domestic results, then I think there is potential. Personally, I think there is potential for the mood to change. But I think things are so fragile at the moment that because that ceiling and floor is so big, they're in this precarious position. So that is how I would summarise it. I think you need a lot of what Russell Martin in theory is selling. The question is, can he produce what he's selling? And can he buy himself the time to do it with the pragmatism, with the getting that gap closer between the ceiling and floor? Because what you cannot get away as much, look at the football as much as you want. Like I'll try to, much to some people's dismay sometimes, but you can't get away from the fact that first 20 minutes like that inflicts so much scar tissue, and that is one of the unique elements of football up here, and you've got to find ways to, I think, navigate around that, rather than just trying to keep going until it gets better. Because as Stevie says, you need to buy that time, and you need to get supporters buy-in to achieve that, to do that.
Yeah. I seem to be saying this every video, really, but yeah, strap yourselves in. I was anxious last week, incidentally, ahead of that Alloa game, and there was certainly questions raised defensively from that. And as we head towards Sunday, I'm a tad apprehensive about that trip to Paisley. But disappointing night for Rangers. But thank you to you all for tuning in to the show, folks. A big thanks to Stevie and to Joshua as well. And enjoy your Wednesday, whatever you are doing. And we'll chat again soon. Bye for now.